Have you ever stopped to wonder how much of who you are is, well, you, and how much is just a reflection of the situation you're in? Turns out, our social worlds have this massive, sometimes kind of shocking influence on our reality. So yeah, let's get into it.
So a quote like this, it sounds like it's describing a real hardened prison, right? But the crazy thing is, the people involved here were just regular college students. This quote, well, it kicks off a truly fascinating and honestly pretty unsettling story about what makes us tick.
And that's the big question, isn't it? How on earth does a normal person transform so completely and so fast? The answer, it turns out, isn't about who they were, but about the roles they were suddenly asked to play. So to really get what was going on here, we've got to dive into one of the most powerful forces in all of social psychology, this incredible pressure we all feel to conform to social roles. And what was so wild was just how fast everything went south. You had Philip Zimbardo, who set up this fake prison right in a university basement. He randomly assigned students to be either guards or prisoners, and almost instantly, the guards started getting sadistic, and the prisoners became these passive, deeply distressed people. The whole situation got so toxic so quickly that the 2-week experiment had to be shut down after just 6 days. It's a seriously powerful example of how quickly we can just become the role we're given.
Okay, so we've got these powerful social roles, right? But they don't just pop up out of nowhere. They're actually part of a much bigger, unwritten set of rules, which you might call our cultural code.
Think of culture as the operating system for our society. It's this whole shared system of customs and values and beliefs that kind of tells us how to act, what's important, and how to make sense of the world around us. It's the rule book we all learn without ever really being taught from a textbook.
And inside this rulebook, you've got different kinds of rules, right? You have mores. These are the big ones, the ones tied to our morals. If you break a more, like robbing a bank, it causes real harm, and there are serious consequences. But then you have folkways. These are more about etiquette. If you break a folkway, like, say, drinking your soup right from the bowl, you might get some weird looks, you'll be embarrassed, but you're not going to jail for it. The key thing is, what counts for each of these is totally defined by our culture.
So, knowing all this stuff about cultural rules, it's not just for a trivia night. It has huge, real-world consequences, especially in fields like therapy. And that brings us to something called multicultural counseling, or the fourth force of counseling.
And that is a huge title, the fourth force. This whole movement, which really got a push from the civil rights movement, was based on a simple but revolutionary idea. You can't really help someone if you don't understand their cultural world. It completely changed the game for therapists, making it an ethical requirement to be culturally aware and pushing this idea of celebrating our differences, not just tolerating them.
And right at the heart of this is a concept called cultural relativity. It's the idea that you just can't judge a behavior as good or bad on its own. It all depends on the cultural context. For instance, in one culture, getting pregnant before marriage might be seen as a huge problem, but in another, it could actually be seen as a good thing. Proof of fertility, which might even make a woman more desirable for marriage. It shows you context is absolutely everything.
And this is where it gets super important for anyone in a field like counseling. The whole goal is cultural awareness, really trying to understand the client's perspective. The big danger is falling into cultural tunnel vision, where you start imposing your own culture's values on them. And that, right there, can be the difference between really helping someone and actually causing harm.
So, all this talk about culture and what we learn, it throws us right in the middle of one of the oldest and biggest debates in psychology. Where does our behavior actually come from? Is it baked into our DNA, or is it something we pick up along the way? Let's take something like aggression.
So in one corner, you've got theorists like Freud and Lorenz. They argued that aggression is just innate. It's an instinct. We're born with a natural drive to fight. But in the other corner, you have the social learning theorists, like the famous Albert Bandura, and their argument was totally different. They said aggression is learned. We see other people doing it, we see it in our environment, and we imitate it.
And this whole idea that our environment molds us, it's not just about the bad stuff like aggression. It also affects something as personal as who we're attracted to. You look at the research, and a few key things keep popping up. We tend to like people who are physically close to us. That's called propinquity. Physical attraction obviously plays a role. We like people who have similar beliefs, and, maybe the most simple one, we tend to like people who like us back. So let's step back for a second. We've gone from a shocking prison experiment to our cultural rules to even who we fall in love with. And there's this one theme that keeps coming up again and again.
And that brings us to our final and maybe most important point: why context is absolutely everything.
The big idea that pulls all of this together is called contextualism. It's pretty straightforward. It just means that you simply cannot understand a person's behavior without understanding the specific cultural and social situation where it's happening. And this idea has a huge effect on how we even manage our own thoughts.
Okay, let's play this out with a really common example. Imagine you have a belief. Smoking is harmful, but your action is, I smoke 3 packs a day. You see the problem there? There's a major clash between what you believe and what you do. So how does your brain even begin to deal with that conflict?
Well, that feeling, that mental tension, has a name. It's called cognitive dissonance. Leon Festinger came up with this theory, and it perfectly describes that uncomfortable, kind of itchy feeling we get when our actions and beliefs just don't match up. It's like a little error message in our brain, and we are powerfully motivated to make it go away. So how do our brains fix this mess? It usually happens in a few steps. First, you feel that tension. Then you get really motivated to get rid of it. But here's the kicker. Instead of changing our behavior, because quitting smoking is hard, it's often way easier to just change our thinking. The smoker might start telling themselves, you know what, that research is probably flawed. Or, hey, I'd rather live a shorter, happy life than a long, boring one. See what they did? They adjusted their beliefs to match their actions, and poof, the tension is gone. Balance is restored. And this brings us right back to where we started. From the guards in the Stanford experiment who adopted cruel beliefs to fit their new role, all the way to a smoker who changes their mind about health research to justify their habit, it all points to the same thing. And it leaves us with this one kind of provocative final thought. If a social role, a cultural norm, or even our own actions can be powerful enough to literally change how we think, what part of you is actually fixed?